The answer to this question, is it a great idea to buy the bigger size property you can and then downgrading in future? The answer intuitively feels like a yes, correct? I get it. When we hear stories of friends, family, that they have sold away their house for a few $100,000 gain, we kind of think, hey, might as well I buy the bigger size that I can afford, and then in future, I just downgrade. The bigger the size is, the more the gains are, correct? But today, I have some data points that will allow me to probably play a devil's advocate, because most of the advertisements we see are rosy on the property segment. And I'll show you data points using interest rates, I'll show you data points using some historical transactions, and I'll show you the impact on your wealth. So if this topic interests you, continue watching on. Hi guys, welcome back. Today I have case studies prepared for you using some HDB flats in Redhill. You know, I'm very familiar with Redhill area. So I've actually picked out two blocks of flats because they are just near the MRT line. And they are block 52 Lengkok bahru. This is picked because it's slightly older. I wanted some data points with 20-year history. And the slightly newer one, which is block 76A Redhill. Now I've actually done a previous video, Ultimate Guide to Buying Your First Property. I'll leave it towards the end of this tutorial. And that video actually suggested that if I were, a single buying a property now, I'll probably be very interested in that until I deep dive into today's tutorial. So I have interesting points to share with you in a quick while. Stick with me. So block 76A Redhill is actually completed in 2004. And naturally you'll be thinking this is the better property to buy, because if we follow the bala curve, we'll be a bit concerned whether the lease will decay, especially when the property gets a bit older. But thankfully this property is still 17 years old. Now I'll compare against the old block 52 Lengkok bahru. If you're staying there, no offense. It's a unique HDB because they have two sizes. If I'm not wrong, it's a 4-room and a 5-room. That is 904 square feet as well as 1,313 square feet. And the main thing about block 52 is that it is since 1986, which means it's a 35-year-old HDB, and I have 20-year data to make comparison points. Now, so if you're buying a first house, you're a young couple right now, you may have seen articles like this before. What is the max amount you can buy with the combined income? If you have just started working, combined income might be $7,000. The max, according to this article from Sidley, is about $540,000. So if you extrapolate, if you have a combined income of $10,000, then the max loan seems to be $770,000. And if your combined income is $15,000, the max loan could be $1.15 million. Now also explain why it's a bad idea to buy a $1.15 million HDB that is already found in Queenstown, Bishan, Toa Payoh, record prices. But before I get there, I'll pull back to today's data points. And let's start with block 52, Lengkok bahru. If we see in this transaction history extracted from 99.co, we realize that I've boxed up 3 time zones, correct? This year, 2021, 10 years ago, 2011, and 20 years ago, 2000. So the sizes are the same. The floor, of course, might impact the price a bit, but it still gives us good enough data points. Let's say you stay 10 years from 2011 all the way to right now. And of course, you fulfill the MOP. You probably could have sold your HDB flat there at $735,000, and your buying price is around $604,000, the respective green and blue boxes. That's a good gain, right? Like $131,000 gain. And before the celebration start for $131,000 gain, let's pull back some cost. The first cost to take note, of course, is interest rate cost. Assuming you went with the HDB loan back then in 2011, the loan amount you'll be taking is $540,000 at 2.6% interest. I've done the heavy lifting for you. I can show you. For the last 10 years, it will have cost you $119,000 in interest costs. Wow. So your gains are $131,000, but interest cost is already $119,000. That leaves you with a meager $12,000 left, actually, as your gain. But wait, we haven't even factored in stuff. Your stamp duty will be 3% less $5,400, which will be a sum of $12,600. So poof, there goes all your profit actually. It's not really accrued interest that's cost you money. It's pure interest cost from loans and stamp duty costs that needs to be factored in. But wait, what if we use a bank loan instead? Say the DBS 1.68%, 5-year fixed. What if we use that as the interest cost? we'll see that the interest amount that is being paid in total for 10 years is 75,900 thereabouts. And with the stamp duty the same at 12,600, that means a gain of about $40,000 to $41,000. Great news, correct? But typically when you buy a flat, you would do renovation, correct? We haven't factored in renovation costs. And main thing is, when you buy this biggest house that you can afford and then choose to downgrade, you're still going to incur a new stamp duty when you buy your next house, which we cannot make assumptions with. So all in all, the equation doesn't look that favorable. So the lesson that you can take away from the discussion so far is the cost of your loan matters, the cost of debt. If it's 2.6% and if it's 1.68%, it's a world of difference. And this cost must be less than appreciation of the property itself so that you actually incur wealth, you actually build wealth. Make sense so far? So don't, because you see a 131,000 gain, you think that it's a great deal. No, not true. The cost itself is already $100,000+. So the next concern maybe is Block 52 is too old. What if we use Redhill 76, which is newer, 17 years old, correct? Because Bala curve suggests that once you're at the 30-year mark, things start to slide very quickly. I get it, and let's look at data points for Block 76A, Redhill Road. What we can see over here is in 2011, transaction prices were around $680,000 to $720,000. Maybe the average we can use is $700,000. And as of today, the average seems to be about $800,000 as depicted in the blue box over here. Now back in 2011, the purchasing price averaged $700,000, now is $800,000. The gain is only $100,000, which is even less than Block 52 5-room flat, which is even older. So this point is not really a lesson, but an observation. The Bala curve risk that we hear quite often may be exaggerated. The real people who make money from the house itself were probably the BTO owners. They bought it at a low cost and then they sold it off to the second owner. The second owner who bought it in 2011 for this flat itself hasn't seen that much of a gain. So if these points were useful so far, help me smash the like button. It's taken our team hours to drill through this and to present to you eventually. So let's fall back on Block 52 Lengkok Bahru, this old HDB. As we can see over here, we have the 20-year transaction history. And it was previously, in this red box over here, average about $450,000 back 20 years ago. Then in the blue box over here, the price was about $604,000 and right now $735,000. So I've actually done the calculations for you. If we look from 2000 all the way to now, the compounded annual growth rate per year is about 2.5%. If we see from the blue box 10 years ago until now, the compounded annual growth rate is only 2%, which means the faster growth period was between 2000 to 2011. That is true if we see the index over here. The big climb was in mid of 2000 and then global financial crisis did not derail the climb all the way until government made cooling measures in 2011 to 2013. So the lesson over here is when you hear stories of big gains in property, you need to understand what cycle it came from. You know, my mom's home, it cost her probably $50,000, but right now it's at least $500,000. And that was bought before I was born. And at a time where the rules were different. So we need to be very savvy. Which period of property was the thing made? And that will actually impact the rate of return. So again, if you agree, smash your like button. Now let's move on to the 4-room for Block 52. Because since this block has two kinds of units, I think it's good for comparison. It's very apple to apple. So if we see the 4-room transaction, we realize that 20 years ago, it seems to be at an average of $280,000. And in blue box over there, 10 years ago, it was $443,000. And as of today, it's about $550,000. Now the surprising finding is, for the last 20 years, the 4-room almost matched the quantum gain of the 5-room. The 4-room gained $270,000, while the 5-room gained about $285,000. Again, this is a very small sample size, but I think the learning lessons are still applicable universally. And with that, the calculation for the compounded annual growth rate for the 4-room is about 3.4% per annum for 20 years. And in the last 10 years, it's about 2.2%. Now, the observation is, does the quantum actually affect the percentage growth rate of the HDB price or not? One reason could be affordability. There's certain income caps to buying a HDB flat. So as it becomes bigger, the quantum growth rate might slow. I think this is an observation that we need more data points, but it's a good suggestion to start things with, and it formulates this thesis that I have. Which is, if you're thinking to buy a 5-room and then downgrade in future, maybe the better idea is just to buy the 4-room immediately. And that's even assuming that the growth rate for both these two units are identical. And these are two reasons why. The first is that the grants are not the same. When you look at the family housing grant, you realize that 4-room flat gets $50,000 if you fall within the $14,000 income limit. But then the 5-room grant is only $40,000. I'm not too sure why there's a difference, but $10,000 more if you choose to buy a 4-room instead of 5-room. Why not take it? The second is that interest cost actually matters. If you avoid a big loan, a lot of the appreciation will not be eaten away by interest costs. And when you take a smaller loan, it's much safer to go with a bank loan. Because the bank loan, you can get it cheaper now, 1.68%. And you can actually keep the excess in your CPF at 2.5%. That's where you have good debt and bad debt, you make the difference. And when the quantum of loan is smaller, you are much nearer to being able to fully pay it off. Because this DBS loan for 5 years, after that it's still floating, correct? What if bank interest cost spikes? Then save hard now so that if it spikes, you have capital to pay it off and avoid interest costs affecting the gains that you've made in your home. So hopefully this has been a great sharing. Share this video with any friends or family who is looking to buy a first house. And with that, I'd like to invite you to smash on the subscribe button also, because in subsequent weeks, I'll be comparing HDB with condo, and I'll be doing an equivalent for condo. If you buy the biggest size condo that you can afford right now, and then choose to downgrade to HDB in future, does it make sense or not? So if you're keen, smash on subscribe, stay tuned for it. And with that, I'll leave you with a big ending point. A house is a liability. When you stay inside it, it's a roof overhead, it's great. But if you want to build wealth, you must be able to pay off this liability and then look for investment assets. And investment property is an asset, but a house isn't, regardless of the capital gains that you can make. So with that, I'll sign off from here and invite you to some of the previous videos I've done on CPF and housing, and maybe one can impact you a bit further. I'll sign off from here, take care and goodbye.